Jeff not here.
Stand for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Somebody said Andy wasn't feeling too, is that right?
Last week, I don't know.
Flu last week or something.
Somebody
I
said
didn't check in on
I
him.
guess he's feeling all right then.
Well, he's here
He's
anyway.
healed.
Holy cow, Johnny Cash.
We thought you had one
Somebody
look the
sitting there?
grave.
He's sitting there. Who's
Wow.
that?
That's
You
nobody.
can sit at the head of the table if you want to.
I don't want to sit down at the
You
table.
look pretty impressive sitting up there.
Yes, you do.
Orange and black.
That's a nice new chair. I think I'll move that down here. Somebody said you were feeling bad last week.
Any public comment for the meeting?
I'm sorry. You started early.
Andy, do you have anything for us today?
Come around to me at the end.
Okay.
I don't think so much.
All right, Mr. Brenner.
Not much. We had the health department meeting last week and we had enough for a quorum. We had three members there.
Out of how many?
8. Holly wasn't even there, so. So we couldn't do much, but we did mention the summer meal program and didn't go over very well. Monica said she's gonna call you, I think.
Yeah, I have not heard from her, although I have talked to Amanda a couple times.
Okay. So I really don't know much what's gonna go on. It's almost getting too late to organize.
What did Amanda have to say? I remember you were saying something, but has she done any legwork on it?
In a nutshell, the Reeds from the restaurant are in charge, and they need, we talked about it the last time, they need a not-for-profit
Right.
partner.
Okay.
And my suggestion to her was, not that it was necessary, because we just need to get it moving, is the most important.
Right.
But if she could find a county-wide entity, I think it would be preferable. And so they had talked about the chamber, but the other option was the community foundation. And she was talking to Doug Hassler about that. But she's not really gonna have an active role, but she's gonna be there as a guide.
Amanda was talking to Doug.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
And I would,
Roseberry, and he in charge of that too.
I don't.
Which
I haven't heard
one's he
much
in
about
charge of?
Water Lake.
he's in on that one also.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where it is, and I said, just let me know when you have an update. She said it's not too late because they've gotten going. But what I didn't ask her about, didn't dawn on me, was remember last year we gave them funds, this current year,
Yeah.
gave them funds because they didn't get their grant application in time to pay for the youth. And I did not ask her about that. I will do that.
They got the meals are paid for, it's just paying for extra, like last year was
Transportation.
the drivers and so forth, which we paid to what, 17,000? Was it 17? I don't know.
10 to 15,000, somewhere in there.
This summer you won't have drivers, so I don't know logistics of getting the food to particular places. So you have to have host places that will be willing to take the food and then people will come and pick it up there. That's
Now,
gonna present a problem. But if you have, say, bring in 40 meals and only 10 people show up, what are you gonna do with the other 30 meals? I don't know.
And she had talked about working with fall transportation,
Right.
which again would be Paris.
Mhm.
But she said she's going to be working with both Kansas and Shiloh already through Douglas County as part of the Tri-County. So that only leaves Chrisman, and I don't know that they are interested anyway. They weren't last year,
They
which,
weren't, right. So it'd be mainly,
so be
mainly
it.
Paris and just simply Paris, I guess, wouldn't it?
I remember last year, she said there was several people in Vermillion and Vermillion area. That was quite a few numbers. But Paris is the bulk of it.
Right,
But
right.
but in this area, Vermillion was another key area.
That's the other village.
Right.
Yeah, of course, and then you think there's Bell Ridge, there are other outside,
Right.
outer
There's two
churches
houses.
that you could do. Right, so it still would
But-
revolve,
Yeah,
it
Oliver
would
possibly, but-
require busing.
Right,
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a village,
right.
yeah.
Right. Well, I guess after the meeting, you said the other day that the state wasn't going to do, transport to houses in like rural areas. I wonder if they're not gonna fund it,
That's what I wondered
No,
too.
no,
or we still could do it if we could come up with funding.
I don't think that's, I don't interpret that way. That's interpreted as a law or whatever that you cannot deliver meals to individual houses. Why, I don't know.
I'd
That
like
needs
to
be
check
looked-
into that
yeah.
to
Right.
see,
Okay, I'm asking.
if they're just not gonna fund, they're just
Right.
gonna fund to the central location. And, if everybody felt it was necessary to actually transport, to individual places, if we could possibly come up
Put
with
it out
funding
there,
to,
Meals on Wheels or something,
Right.
something like
I
that.
know Carla's still interested in making the meals, and that's
Right.
not gonna be a problem as far as making the meals.
Mhm.
I don't know.
So they're trying to maybe work with Community Foundation possibly.
Okay, the first question I asked her was, do you need or were you planning to apply for the workforce grant to pay for the youth? That's what she didn't have last year, and she said, yes, we're working through the one already in place in Douglas, so that's gonna pay the youth to help prepare the meals.
Mhm.
And I know when she was talking to me earlier, she was talking about maybe those youth also being the ones that took the meals to Vermillion Church, for example. So, but what I'm asking her now is the transportation. So she'll answer me.
But she was working on
So
No, you
basically,
talk about that.
so far, health department's given us thumbs down. I don't understand that, but
That's a good
this.
question.
Basically,
Why, do you think?
don't wanna mess with it. They claim you don't have the help.
is
And the
it,
thing is,
so it's,
nothing's being asked for them other than a signature.
There's no physical help involved.
well, that's was the thing, after the meeting, I thought, if we just need a sponsor, they don't have to actually do it. It sounds like the Reeds are gonna
But
do.
Monica said she would contact, I think she said Amanda, or you, I gave her, I think, the phone number. I don't know.
Well, we need to follow up with her and
Right,
see,
she may be more willing than Janet, because she's gonna be in charge of the health department starting in July, I think. Janet's
So right now, it'd
dropping
still be
down.
Janet's signature.
Pardon?
Right now, it'd still be Janet's
Right,
signature.
right, still gonna be Janet.
What do you need Janet to sign anything for?
They have to have a not-for-profit.
Well, that's,
Right.
you need a signature. It
That's all-
doesn't need
that's
to be
all we're
Janet's, you
asking.
just need a
They
signature.
don't wanna pay.
Right.
Could it be-
Her
School's
comment
not
was-
for profit, isn't
Foundation,
it?
well, yes, and again, if this is only gonna be Paris, yes, it could be Jeremy Larson, and that would all be just fine. A little bit of
Her comment
Public
was they
perception
don't wanna
would
have to pay money.
Good.
good.
Yeah.
to see
that's their
everything.
biggest thing, is they don't want to have any
Finance.
costs to them.
Right,
All right. But, yeah, it sounds like we're just talking District 95 and Unit 4 school
Right.
district. The other school district, Shiloh and Kansas is already getting taken care of.
Right.
Last year, Chrisman didn't want anything to do with it, because they didn't
Right.
have much interest.
Yeah, although their free and reduced lunch numbers are a lot higher than they used to be.
Who Charlottes are?
Christian. Both of them are pretty high.
She says there is an opportunity with the No Child Hungry for transportation, but no guarantee. Do I have other ideas?
well, Ball might be interested in
Well, right,
taking
and
meals
so,
to certain areas. You'd have to set up host places where the meals will be brought, and then people have to come pick it up. To me, that presents a problem, because you're talking about kids, but the kids have parents that work all day, and
Yeah,
can't get the kids there.
I don't see how it
That's
would work.
it.
Well,
That's not.
you're leaving out the worst,
No,
the ones that need it the worst.
Mm.
You're leaving them out, the ones that the parents are gone and they
Those,
need something to
those
eat.
parents aren't gonna make one move to do
Right.
anything.
No.
If you put it on their front porch, they will get up out of the chair and go get it. Or they will send the kids outside the front porch to get it. But that's it, they won't do anything
I think
else.
I thought the state said you couldn't do it, period.
Well,
Maybe I'm wrong, but
What's the reason for that anyway?
Yeah,
Probably-
what's the difference?
probably
If you
because
pick
when
the
you
kid
get
up to take to a central location, or you drop it off at the kid's house.
There isn't any difference, is there?
Not when you're speaking logically.
Well, that-
And there you go.
Probably because when you go to
Maybe
Cook
that
County,
explains the whole
somebody
thing.
snags the meals and sells them for half price, and there you go. I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm sure.
So I just asked her, where are you with ball transportation if there's no money? So-
Well, she volunteers for a lot of stuff, but I wouldn't count her volunteering for all that.
No, not in today's,
Especially since she's
Cost.
gotta pay me.
So we need to do follow-up on it,
Right.
and not let it drop,
right.
I don't get these people.
so, okay.
And you can't,
Thank you very much for calling Amanda to make sure that what I said was accurate. I appreciate that follow-up.
Well, I had a question after I talked to Joni, that Joni was a little confused about what was going on, so I went to Amanda to
I
figure out what's
appreciate,
happening.
I
Yeah.
appreciate
you might, if you
that.
have a chance, contact Monica at the health department. She
Amanda's-
actually mentioned
Yeah.
either
Amanda's-
you or Amanda could contact her.
Yeah. Said she's trying to get a location and dates worked out at the moment. Dustin Reed is working with Jeremy Larson to try and get a school to be available.
There you go.
That would be good.
I would think the school would be the natural fit,
What, yeah,
because
that's,
Jeremy and,
In town.
and Unifor,
Unifor.
right.
One same as the other.
Yeah, look at the millions of dollars they got in grants
I was gonna
for a
say,
lot
yeah,
of summer
yeah,
programs.
Right, right.
And then, you know, one of the keys is you gotta have them fed to do these, you know,
They spent a lot of money on that whole field. Like,
They have a database of who all these kids are, and who presently is on the free and reduced
they
lunch.
will know everything.
Right.
District 95 is the logical thing to be in.
Okay.
I think Jeremy would
Be
be
the host
willing
and-
to help.
Yeah, I can't see Jeremy not doing it.
But you save a million, that'd be Unifor.
Right,
Right.
yeah.
With all the money
And-
they got in grants, you're right. I mean, geez,
And
about all the money they're spending for different programs for kids.
And I don't think it's
They get
like
every year.
either school system would be paying anything, you just need a non-for-profit sponsor, basically.
Right, yeah. So,
It's not
we'll
gonna
do
cost-
follow-up on that and not let it drop.
Not good.
Get right on that.
Okay.
Get right on that, yeah. Up to it.
Adam, did you have
Come
anything?
on.
One of them working hard.
You guys have anything for me?
I kind of cool down the sirens when you go by my house.
Hey,
It's
Again,
spring.
you've never heard that
Dan,
before.
I saw you outside yesterday and I did not hit the siren, so.
Thank you very much. I'd have a heart attack.
You need to turn that baby up loud and let it go right up behind
Hey,
you. Cut
That's
loose.
new when they got, that is a really loud.
One of them I was following the other day had ungodly number of lights on the back of it. Boy, that was impressive.
That new one.
About had, went into some kind of shock here.
Not twice as loud as the rest of them do.
Did you have anything else, Mr. Bruno?
No. That's about it.
Carl's gotta
I
get
can't-
to work.
I can't believe we, well, don't put in the paper, but enough for a quorum. I mean, Ollie was gone, Dr. Graham was gone, Shake was on vacation. We still have one vacancy we haven't filled yet, which to me is, it's been such a long time, and then we're probably gonna have another one, so. The
Yeah,
board doesn't really
every
exist.
month or every other month?
Every other.
Every other month.
It's hard to make that many meetings.
Well, we need to, when Jeff gets back, maybe move on.
Work on
Something.
appointing somebody.
Yeah, get something,
We need one appointed, and, they have a name, I guess, but,
yeah.
and then, we know John probably will be dropping off probably.
All right.
So we have two members. I know one that wants on, you know who. I know one that really wants on, you know who I mean, though. Yeah.
I love it.
Russ didn't have anything?
Nope.
Coach? Lisa?
Homework.
Oh, Lisa. Just not a big
You've
deal.
been doing too much. You gotta slow down, man.
I keep thinking maybe someday I'll get a job and then I won't have all this time, so use me now.
You're a woman, you want to-
All right, so a while back, Jeff is cognizant of the fact that if there's going to be an adjustment or a change update to elected officials' salaries, per diems, et cetera, that it has to be voted on and approved at least 180 days before that entity takes office. So he gave me this nice yellow notebook that he got that was a voluntary reporting of salaries from different counties. So, I took those that have the most similar to our county size and looked at this information. So that's where these numbers come from. And then I compared it to what our current salary or per diem information is. And then Jeff and I met and came up with a proposal, which is on the far right side, the Egger proposal. And that's where these numbers come from. So this is two different topics here, basically, county board member and chair, and the topic of a salary and per diem. And then the elected officials, this time being the clerk and recorder, the treasurer, and the sheriff. So these are just a suggestion. And then Augie and I met to have further brainstorming and conversation on the topic. When Jeff and I met, we were just taking a look, for example, the clerk and recorder. And there was only one county that had separate positions, so we put them together for this, because each of these counties, not surprisingly, has that combined as one. If you look, the average salary is $59,000 a year. Ours right now is at $54,779. So we took a look at not being at the bottom of the list on that, of what a salary is, recognizing that that is the least that we should do, is try to be somewhere within the range. And then a 3% increase per year, so that that salary would start at $60,060, and by the end of that person's term, it would be $65,629. 3% being slightly more than what we had done this year for all salaries. We ended up at, for all pay, we gave you a 2.5%. Am I thinking right?
Elected officials?
No,
No.
just the
County
Was it
employees.
two and a
county
quarter,
employees.
wasn't it?
County
It
employees.
was a 2 1/4. It's either 2 1/4 or 2.5.
Right. So that is one suggestion on how we could handle this. Now Augie, you and I had discussed that a little bit further. Do you want to share what you had thought could be an option or an alternative?
To this,
To that portion,
to that portion, the
right.
annual, okay. Yeah, I would like to see, or at least talk about, discuss the possibility of a raise that's tied into, with a floor, a minimum, but also tied into CPI. With, Social Security, they got a 5 1/2 or 5 3/4 raise, and inflation's running at 7 and gonna go to, God only knows how high that's gonna go. And so, just something to think about. Maybe the higher of 3% or CPI, or you can say CPI 3% or CPI, whichever is higher.
CPI.
Consumer Price
Right,
Index.
well, it is gonna be the next few years, it is
Yeah.
right now,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and probably will be the next few years.
So, those,
Is the CPI done annually, or is it a monthly?
I think it's a monthly,
So it,
Carl, so you just, we need to pick one.
so, is Social Security based off of that? Is that what Social Security increases, is off the
Cost of living
CPI?
increase,
Pardon?
cost of living increase, that's just yearly on Social Security.
Yep.
Once a year, beginning of the year.
That's what I was thinking, Social Security probably just once a year.
Mhm.
Yeah, but they figure the year's average and then do it once a year.
Right.
Right.
So what was does anybody know what that increase was?
6%,
How
almost
much?
6%, 5.9%.
Wow.
This
Yeah.
time,
But that's only this once. It wasn't, it's
yeah,
not
it's
that much
usually
before.
really small.
Yeah, it's usually like 1.5 or 2% of the
Right.
rest.
And then Medicare went up $25 too, so,
So we broke even.
yeah.
They give it one hand, took back
Well,
the other.
that's the purpose of the CPI, is so
Right.
you break even. It's so you don't lose ground.
Right, right.
Sorry about
Uh,
your
this,
luck.
this was, this was the, first time in 40 years it's gone up that much.
Right,
Usually it's 1/2, 1.5%,
Really?
1.3%,
thanks, Joe.
which is not even nothing. It's nothing. Yeah.
$100 a year, which is
Mhm.
$9 a month.
Yeah.
So we don't, my purpose
Yeah,
today is
more
only
than that,
to,
cut
food for
10.
thought, we don't even necessarily have to, so we can talk about this again after we've had a chance to think about it at our next study session. We can vote on it at the April board meeting, but we can also, if we feel the need, we can also wait and vote on it in May, but no later than May.
So exactly what are we doing? We're raising what we get, or Jeff, or everybody? or
Okay,
what?
that's a separate conversation.
Okay. Jesus, I told to shut up about more women. I don't get it.
Do all these counties have 7 board members, or do some have more
No.
or less?
It varies
And
greatly.
Champaign has like 15 or something, don't they?
Right.
That's what I-
One of our
Well,
districts has 20-some people on their board.
Vermillion has 20-some.
Where's
Right.
Union? What's
So wait,
Union?
let's
Union?
discuss this bottom part first,
Okay.
because those are two totally separate conversations.
Okay.
So,
Lisa,
Um,
may I point out that, just as a reminder, it's the law that you set the salaries 180 days prior to the beginning of the term of the office, but it's set for 4 years.
Mhm.
So it's not a, we look at it
A year from
a
now.
year from now and make those decisions. You know going in that for the next 4 years, here's what it looks like.
right, and so I didn't do much math on the coroner one, but it would be in this same pool too. And then, so 4 years from now, 2 years from now, we look at circuit clerk, state's attorney, and,
Corner.
Corner.
okay, coroner's the next time around.
Yep.
Okay. So we need to have, I think today really what we need to have on, especially on this bottom part, is our philosophical conversation. You know, where do we look at this? Do we look at a flat percentage rate, or do we look at tying it to one and or the other? Saying that the annual increase will be based upon X percentage, or the annual CPI, whichever is greater. We can do it either way.
Well, that makes sense to me.
It's good consumer price index.
Whichever's greater. I like that phrase.
Do we set the salaries for all these elected officials?
Yes.
I thought the state did.
No.
Oh, okay,
They do.
okay.
But
And-
then also, do all the elected officials get stipends from the state? I mean, I know that's a separate issue, but do they?
We have in the past.
Okay.
Yes.
You don't, it's from year to year, you don't know,
Well, there's a lot of pushback in the General Assembly, as I understand it, to maybe reconsider those. But I don't know if
consider
that's gonna.
eliminating them?
Yeah, eliminating, reducing. I know there's a certain number of people that would like to see that, but there are also a statewide group of elected officials, obviously, that are not gonna want that.
Right.
So,
Right.
but, yes, but yet that is a fact that
All
every,
elected officials,
I think,
all
yeah, I think every elected official
do they, in this list get something?
gets some
And
kind
it
of a
varies
stipend from the state, yeah,
From which office you're in?
yeah.
Okay.
And I think
So-
And that comes from the state, it doesn't, the
Right.
county.
Now, is that
doesn't.
based on just X amount, or based on miles, or?
No,
It's
it's
a
just
flat-
it's a flat dollar amount, and while I can't speak for the other offices, and I would stand corrected, but I believe the General Assembly gives the State Board of Elections the clerk and recorder stipends, and then they pass that on to the county clerks, and I think that was in response or recognition that
where years ago, a lot of the elections were handled locally in the townships and the schools, but that all got moved up to the county clerk office. And so I think that's
So
great.
the
Thanks for
elections
doing
were-
all that.
The elections were what? They were-
years ago.
Uh-huh.
Years ago. They were done locally in the townships and villages and,
So they handled it.
yeah, that's my understanding.
Oh, it hadn't been since
Before
you
me.
did-
Oh, no, 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 no,
Right,
no.
I was like, what?
No. That was, I mean, years ago.
Okay,
So I think there's that consideration for doing that.
okay.
But like I said, I can't speak for the other elected offices.
I know at one time, like on the sheriff's, years ago, it was based off of the population of the county, on how much it was. And then they changed it to the number of beds that the jail held. What it is now, I don't know what it's based off of.
Just remember, we do this time, and then we do the others in 2 years. And it's like anything else, it won't go backwards. So
Be careful.
be considerate.
Okay.
So, you're weighing two things. And the other thing, and this is corporate, Lisa, it is a challenge for me, and we had this philosophical conversation too, that in this structure, there is no reward for longevity or superior performance. So, clerk and recorder, this is not Augie's salary, this is clerk and recorder. It could be a new person who comes in with zilch experience. So that's a challenge for me to change that mindset. And when we talk later about the board chair, this is not Jeff, so we can't measure, we can't weigh what a great job Jeff does and how many meetings he has that don't qualify for a per diem. We just have to remove people and how we see them doing the role today. So just keep that in mind if you come from that different mindset, which is the same as teachers.
What? I didn't do anything. I'm sitting here
Well, I
listening.
can't help it that you didn't do anything. You walked into that one.
Hey, what's new?
That was good. I like really the other guy.
All right, so we don't have to move any further on that. But I will also have to check with the state's attorney or assistant state's attorney on any language that we decide to do, just to make sure we're staying within the law, especially if we're tying it in a different way, like including the consumer price index. They would verify that we have that capability. So if you want me to, I could go ahead and email, I think Tim, to find out if that is a possibility before we move any further. If you are interested in seeing if tying the consumer price index is something that you want to explore further.
So I'm calling salary average. Are we talking about these as salaries suggested for elected officials like sheriff? We're gonna
Right,
give him
like-
69,000.
The salary average is the average of
Crawford,
Yeah,
Lewis,
all
yeah.
these.
Right,
Yes.
So we're talking about giving the sheriff that number next year as a,
Over on this next column is what
Right, so we would
she
be
suggested.
just a little bit higher than the salary average
I see.
to start with, but very well
I see,
within
okay,
the range.
makes sense.
So, I'm afraid to ask you a question now. Got me scared.
Yeah,
The right side's what you're suggesting, and the left side is actually as it is.
correct.
See? 1 for 1.
Okay.
And when are we gonna decide this?
Drop dead date is the May board meeting.
So,
We have a lot of
this is
time
a
to think.
philosophical
This is a
discussion that you were
philosophical
talking about.
conversation right now.
And when we get back next month, the first meeting at the study session,
I will know whether consumer price index is even an option.
Okay.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
So now we can look at the top.
The top.
The
county
board
board.
member and
Oh,
board
okay.
chair. And really, Jeff is just as happy to not be here during this
I can
conversation.
understand that.
Is there a way we can raise ours and lower his? So make sure he knows that was a suggestion. That's just a joke, paper guy.
May not be.
Okay, so
Does a great job.
now going over here, when we look at, let's just look at board members. Right now, of course, ours is $1,500 a year, $35 per meeting. Crawford does not have any salary, Union's at $84.90, so that was such a widespread there that it's not super helpful. And then 3 of them have a per diem. And so I think, that kind of explains why Union,
Where's Union County?
Yeah.
That's down
down
south.
way down, it's a collar down at the bottom.
Yeah.
That's completely different than everybody else.
It is, and it's a
Down there.
surprise because there's a lot of poverty in those
Right, I'm
bottom
just trying to
5.
figure out
Yeah,
where's,
that's
why that all
not
that
really.
money down there.
Maybe they're corrupt, I
I
don't
may
know.
move down
And then, but that can also
Today.
explain why they don't have a per diem as they built it into their salary. And the same with Wayne. So they're, although Union is such an outlier.
Yeah.
So, one thing that Jeff and I had talked about was changing how we view, instead of having it per meeting, be a per diem, so that regardless of how many meetings you attended, your per diem would be $75 if you attended 1 or 5 meetings in a day. And we had talked about if that is what we chose to do, then continue with the flat $125 a month salary, not to increase both of them. Or you go the other way around and you take out the whole per diem and you increase salary.
No,
Those are the ways you can look at it.
I'm just
Just
looking at it
saying.
my way,
there. Mhm.
selfish.
Or you leave it at a certain amount per meeting. And I do think also, as a newer kid on the block, I want to make sure that we really firmly understand the definition of a meeting. And that we make sure that that's very clear in writing. So we have some things to look at there. So you're looking at per diem, you're looking at salary.
So per
You're
diem,
looking at per meeting, per diem, or neither and do
okay,
it as a
so
salary.
if we go per diem, the salary should be $75 a meeting, period, right?
The
That's
per
what-
diem.
That's our option.
Mhm.
And then we leave the salary thing in what word is, okay. But $75 a meeting, but the
No,
question is.
$75 per day, regardless of how many
So if
meetings.
we have a meeting now and you, this afternoon, you have to go to the animal shelter and have another meeting, and then tonight you go for a
Jail study.
jail meeting,
It's not 225, it's still 75.
it's 75.
You know how I multiplied that in my head.
Right.
I get it, I'm okay with it. I'm just asking,
Yeah,
leave the other side the same, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. But I see you raising that. So look at, I had no idea.
I know,
what
I
other
didn't either,
people
I thought
do.
it was pretty interesting, and again, this is voluntary, that's why you don't see Clark on here. Otherwise, Clark would have been one of them I would have added.
Oh, you didn't ask Clark?
No, I just
Okay.
stuck with the data.
What did you ask for?
I just didn't.
Well, Crawford doesn't have a salary for a board meeting.
They have a pretty high per diem.
I see, okay.
Well, I like that, just the way you got it written, it looks good to me.
So 75 per diem and 125 like.
Yep, and who got,
What's considered a meeting? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
well, that's what she
That's
said,
the
we
other
gotta
thing,
figure out what
There's
exactly.
times I spend all morning with the guys at
Right.
Sycamore trying to do stuff.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, especially you. And Jeff and I had this
I'm
conversation
late.
too.
Yeah.
Your position, your role, your committee, not you. It depends on what committees you're on, how many times you meet face to face versus spending a lot of time on the phone. I would assume you're kind of both. You spend time on the phone and you're there a lot.
Mhm.
So if we have a meeting right now, Bruno and I do, we have a dog meeting this afternoon, we only get the 75, but if we move that meeting till tomorrow, then we get 150.
Don't
There are
play the
always people
system.
that look at it that way,
Hey,
yes.
that's not-
I'm just pointing things out. Is
Yeah.
there or is it
Yeah,
not?
there is a way to, you
Money
know, people
doesn't
can
mean
abuse
crap to me
anything.
Oh, bullshit.
about this. I mean, this is just money for fun stuff. I didn't even know you guys got paid right on this board. That was a really big surprise. I like that.
I didn't either, that wasn't why I
I
came.
should get more for harassment.
No.
Oh,
I was
per
gonna say,
diem.
that's- you sent me something, that's what came through.
Is that right or not right?
Oh, yes, you did.
If you have a meeting today and the animal shelter tomorrow, that'd be
Wednesday,
considered
Wednesday.
2 per
And
diems.
so,
Right.
Actually, I have one. We don't
I
have
know, you're gonna take this.
Kept waiting for
I
something
know
to
our
come
meetings
through.
are always scheduled, not on days we have these, but I don't want anybody thinking we're
We're
doing that on purpose. We haven't held time trying to find a day all three of us to get together anymore.
Yeah. So
So
if,
everybody kinda likes that.
I do, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think so.
and having the meeting or per diem, whichever way you wanna look at it, recognizes a little better the efforts of those who are on more committees and are more active with them.
Question. Okay, you take, well, I don't do that much, I mean, I help him or whatever. But Andy is all the time doing all kinds of crap. Carl does all kinds of stuff for the sheriff. You know what he does. But see, they're not getting reimbursed any for all the extra time that they spend.
Right.
See what I mean? I mean, that's you guys' deal, but still, you're not gonna have the information you need without doing what you do. So we're getting paid the same, you're doing lots more.
True.
Which goes
That's not fair.
back to what's the definition of a meeting, and I don't know, is that a state definition or is that a local?
That wouldn't be a meeting, I don't think. Although it's not fair to them,
What would
to
be
do
a
the
meeting?
extra.
All the work
All
you
your
do.
phone calls.
Phone
Phone
stuff
calls
like
don't
that.
count, it's when you got it, when you're physically there
Well,
for like,
but you spend all kinds of time up,
sometimes, yeah, I haven't lately, but yes, I mean,
and
And I
don't you,
do,
Carl,
yeah.
you're always
I guess that'd
involved
be
with the
Definition
sheriff.
of a meeting.
yeah.
What?
You know, the
We
world
don't
has
do any of that.
changed.
We spend more time with the dog. I don't.
Yeah, because it used to be, you know, when your meeting definition was set, that was before COVID. And now,
I hate to
whether
do it.
it's Zoom, you know, we, in the work world, you see a Zoom meeting, that's a
Oh,
meeting.
fine. Yeah.
Or why does it matter whether or not you dial into a website or it's a pick up the phone? It's still a meeting.
Yeah.
I talked to him.
I would say, figure the description of meeting and probably per meeting would be more fair.
Per meeting,
Because if you have 3 meetings a day,
per meeting.
that's a lot of time.
So you guys have
Yeah,
a sheriff's
try to do
meeting
everything.
on the same day, you just get the 75. But you have it on different, I mean, you're not
Yeah,
scheduling it
you
that
have-
way, you're just trying to find a day to do it. Well, I'm not too sure you don't deserve it though. I mean, what the heck, there's a lot of stuff you guys gotta do.
Right.
Okay.
It might be better per meeting. I don't know.
Augie, any comments?
Yeah, thank you for letting me, and I have not thought about this very deep, but just listening to you, it sounds to me like you should, if you're interested, it sounds like you're interested in that per diem, 75 per diem, but I think the way to help compensate for those times that you guys are always doing something, I think you're shortchanging yourself on the monthly.
I think so too.
I think you need to roll up to the average
What is the average?
and, or in that ballpark.
3,000.
And that would help take care of that. In my opinion, looking at it,
Well,
How much a month?
is that right?
And I'm not doing
I don't know, I didn't do the math, I just know
I'm not
that,
doing this for the money.
well, yeah, and you, well,
No, yeah,
it's just a consideration, that's all it is.
Twice as much.
I mean, you,
takes a lot of
But it
guesswork
takes
out
up
of it.
meetings.
it takes a lot of guesswork.
Because otherwise you're sitting there going, I don't know, I spent all afternoon with somebody, is that a
If you did
meeting?
it like Union and Wayne, you would not do per diems, which in my case, Jeff and I are the only ones that are really affected by that. What do you do with mileage? I mean, my mileage is 48 round trip.
I don't, do you get paid
So-
to go to the
That'd be
meetings?
separate, wouldn't
Is that considered?
Yeah, I do, I get paid to go to Charleston every time we have a regional meeting.
Well, that's a little different. I mean, I think, we all gotta come to this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so I guess.
I do claim, when I worked here, I didn't claim mileage, but now that I'm driving
It's pretty hard to
Special-
ride down
48
there 2
miles
miles.
round
Yeah,
trip.
that's a long way for you,
Yeah.
but,
That'd pay me $1.
But
but you
so,
represent that 48 miles, 24 miles away.
Okay, why can't you, say, if, like Augie says, if you wanna raise the salary, I mean, you don't have to, why just can't you raise it, whatever, some dollars you wanna raise it and leave the per diem the same way it is? I mean, you're raising both. I don't know if people would like that or not, but if, would that help cover some of the extra that these, especially these two and Jeff do? I'm not sure you're ever gonna cover what, all the stuff Jeff does.
Yeah, he does a lot. I mean,
so yeah, so see, this is quite a philosophical conversation we needed to be
Well, that's what
thinking
we're
about
supposed to be
today.
having.
Yeah,
I know when I first
There are
got on the board,
options.
they were talking about meetings. But then in recent years, I've heard Jeff talk about when you're conducting business, not actually a meeting, where a committee gets together, like you have to go up and meet with,
Sycamore and talk.
Sycamore and stuff, you're doing business for the county. That should be considered
A meeting.
for the meeting or whatever you wanna call it. And like when I have to go to talk with the 911 coordinator and spend, an hour or 2 hours and
Yeah.
the sheriff, I'm not, our committee isn't going, but I'm going there and, spend, I've spent 2 or 3 hours there.
Right.
I agree. There's gotta be some way to compensate that.
And I kind of consider a meeting, if I could just run up and answer a couple questions and leave, no big deal, but there's times I'll spend all morning.
Yeah, see, that's gotta be compensated somehow. I just don't know how you do it. Or the rest of us, we don't have that.
It's kinda hard to consider a meeting on, I mean, this is a meeting. When you go on your own to do something, I know it should be considered a meeting, but may not be considered a meeting according to what you count as a meeting. This is a meeting here,
yeah, this is very straightforward,
Right.
no argument.
that's what I'm saying.
I will tell you, somebody made a comment to me not too long ago who was involved quite a few years ago on county board, about milking it. About milking
Oh,
the
okay,
definition
yeah,
of a
yeah.
meeting. And again, so we're
Same
not
thing.
talking about you and your being ethical, or you and being ethical.
What you can vote
Everybody's
for.
not always gonna be that way, unfortunately, there's always that opportunity, so that's another reason why we need to be pretty tight on the definition of a meeting.
I went to a meeting one time and had to give the money back because I wasn't on that particular committee. I was interested in what they were talking about. So I counted as a meeting because I took time to go there to find out what was going on. Well, somebody complained, I had to give the money back.
Milking it. That's what
Milking
it
it,
is.
yeah. I didn't think about it.
In your case, it was innocent, but somebody else it might not have been.
Right.
Innocent, he never.
You went as a citizen.
So-
not
Well,
as a
Well,
citizen.
yeah, I didn't think that, this was when we had the airport problem. Yeah, that was a
Now,
mess.
there's another thing, guys, you guys spend all kinds of hours out there.
13 meetings I attended 1 month.
Yeah, back then we went to a lot of meetings.
Yeah, they put me on
Okay,
that.
so
I said, I'm not gonna be on that.
where do we stand right now? What's our consensus?
We don't have to have one.
It's definitely, you probably ought to have one by next meeting.
Well,
Look at it,
Like
hash it out, think what you think, everybody will
Can
take,
you
decide.
put the per diem to 75 and raise the 125 to something, 140 or 150 or whatever? Is that legitimate?
We can do that, if
Is that
that's,
ethical?
you look, yeah. I
Is
mean,
somebody gonna rip us for doing that?
I could
Most
mention a
people don't think
group,
we deserve anything.
I could mention a group that may,
Well,
Well, I
you know
think
what I'm talking about, don't
it's,
you, Carl?
I think it depends on how you arrive at that.
Yeah.
I really think it depends on how you arrive at that. If you arrive at it with the right reason and you have the right definitions, I don't think it's an issue. It's when people go, hey, yeah, we ought to get a raise, and there you
Well,
go.
I'd say we're already giving this more thought than
Yeah,
most boards
because
do.
actually I don't remember the exact figures, but what was it, 4 years, 6 years ago, we raised it a little bit,
Yes.
but it'd been like 20 or 30 years, and there was had been no increase in, this is what, basically, what 4 years ago was the same amount that they were getting 30 years ago. They're like 20 or 30 years with no increases for the county board,
Correct.
so,
Well,
so.
Some people think-
We can think about it, and
Yeah.
we can talk about it at our next study
I think
session,
everybody needs to look at it, and you come up with your ideas, and then we can, I
discuss
can say,
it.
this is what I think we ought to do, you say, this is what you think you ought to do, and then
I agree. Sounds good to
You know,
me.
there are several things to look at. Do you, which is more correct, per meeting or per diem, that's one. You know, which is correct, per diem or per meeting, because those are two different things. And then, should it be just a flat amount per month, or should it be a combination? Or it could be like Crawford, and there is no salary, it's all based on per diem. So that totally recognizes your meetings. And again, what's the definition of a meeting? So there's a lot to think about there. And then on board chair, that's the same issue, that's not different, but what is different is looking at what all a board chair does, that no matter how you define it, we're not gonna end up defining that as a meeting.
Boy,
And
he's beating way
so,
over everybody else.
so,
Maybe
you know, we can think about Jeff because that's the only one I know in detail. How many times Jeff picks up the phone and calls one of us?
he's on the
It's a
phone
lot.
constantly.
Yes, or calls
That's
the
his
mayor,
nature,
or, yeah. So, and I would think a good active county board chair would do those things, whether it's Jeff or someone else. So, that's a lot more than the difference that shows here as far as responsibility. It's, you know, how much are you going to pay the board chair because of that huge additional responsibility a good board chair has? So, and that's why Jeff was really glad he wasn't here today.
Well, I'd have a lot of shots at him, this would be a great day. I'll just say.
So, this increased monthly salary, that was my note to myself. I really feel like the board chair should have a pretty substantial increase in salary to reflect the responsibility that can't be compensated
I agree,
otherwise.
I agree too. Even if it is Jeff, I agree.
And interestingly then, let's go back and look at our sister counties. DeWitt, that's why DeWitt's is so different, and Pike. Union is not different, and neither is Wayne.
So if you look at DeWitt.
And Crawford
the-
does it by per diem,
See that?
that's how they reflect it.
Yeah, if DeWitt gets $1,000 a month, is that what that means?
No, that's annual.
Annual, so that's less than we get.
400 a month.
And it was listed in that report as per diem. I don't know if that's actually per diem or per meeting, but that's how they defined it as per diem.
40 me by 400. Which one? That was what, my bad.
DeWitt's 400.
400 a month,
400 a month plus the
that's about
per
5,000
diem.
a year.
Yeah.
The 1,000 is for a year,
Yes.
but then you divide that by 12,
Right.
so that's,
Four.
yeah, okay.
400. Well, little-
We get, the regular board members get 100, currently with Edgar County, gets 125 a month, and the
Right.
county board chairman gets 135 a month,
Yeah.
basically, plus a meeting.
Right.
So, I mean, he's just getting $10 a month more
Yeah, that's
than we are.
that's pretty bad.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't make it worthwhile, at some point, you're gonna sit there and go, I'm not taking it. You take it for $10 more a month?
Not for anything more a month.
Right,
That's what we got
then there is
trouble.
that, yeah.
Well,
So,
You say not for
pay what you do
anything
downtown.
more.
A lot of people say, oh, you're way
Everything's
overpaid.
got a cost.
Another group says you're way underpaid, so we'll work
But
hard.
again, you know,
Yeah.
that's, we have this documentation, we are not just picking a number out of the air. We have documentation, this is the data that we're using to make a decision,
Sounds.
and that's, I think, the big difference.
I agree. I agree.
So, take this home, think about it. In the meantime, I'm gonna email Tim and ask if we can tie the other elected officials' salaries to include CPI, or if it just has to be a percentage. And I'm gonna ask him if there is a definition of a meeting
Yeah, that's
and
something
a per
you
diem.
can know,
And Tim will give it in a paragraph form. It will be.
Who's that?
I have confidence. Tim Goldberg, our new assistant superintendent.
I don't have to, but I'll go ask Josh for it.
He helped me immensely on the solar ordinance.
That's the new state's attorney.
I really appreciate him.
Assistant attorney.
Assistant, yes.
It'll be-
Anything else, Lisa?
Let me, yes. You asked, right? And Jeff and I talked briefly last night on the phone. And did you see the email about the Coles County Regional Economic Development meeting that's this next week? At a winery down by Effingham. It's a regional, I think, it's a regional conversation. So it's an update, but I think there's also supposed to be some brainstorming. And so I emailed the organizer and asked if there was anybody else from either City of Paris or the county that was registered. She said no, and I said, well, if nobody else registers, I'll go. And then I said, hey, Russ, you wanna go with me? And he's not sure.
I'm still up in the air.
Okay, that's fine, I'm gonna go.
You want to,
So,
you want to let you go, Lisa?
Maybe not.
I'm pretty wild, he should probably drive.
I hope.
So, I'm gonna go to that, it's on the 24th. I would hate for Edgar County to be left out. And if you're a face in a room, they're gonna be more likely to remember you. And if I hear something, not that I'm really up on all the economic development, especially that Paris is involved in, but I'll just hear it, and hopefully that will make a difference.
That's the
24th, from 5:30 to 7, Illinois time. I speak the language of whoever is my listener. It's a challenge
And you're
sometimes.
close to the border, aren't you? That's,
Yeah. It's my life. And then the other is, I had asked Augie on, status of the website and the changing from .com to .gov. And before you answer that, Illinois Secretary of State is .net.
Is it really?
Yeah. I went on to renew a license plate and it's .net.
Is it really?
ILSOS.net.
wow.
So they can't even get it straight
They
there.
can't get it.
Okay, enough of the rant. So,
So our application has been sent in to the state, and Jeff had to sign a letter, Ross had to do an application, I did an application, and the last we heard, I think Friday, Ross checked, and it's just in process, so.
and when we get that, so that we have a new email and website, if you go in and you look at our website, it is adequate, but it does not look fresh and new and current. And it's not necessarily super user-friendly. I think there's a lot that could be done to not only change just the look, but also change some of the user-friendly capabilities, links and such. So I would suggest that we think about pursuing hiring somebody to go in and update or create a website that reflects today's standards. Because there's just a whole lot, and there's a whole lot that could be
Does
done to make it
Tech
look
Block
a little
do
better.
that, town?
I'd say we'd be finding somebody, what I would suggest is that somebody go in and just troll some other websites, county
Tell
websites,
them
see
what
who
you
looks
like.
good. You
And
go to
say,
the
"Hey,
very
do
bottom
this."
and you will probably find what it is that you need. They'll talk about who the webmaster is and who the
Right.
designer is. And I'm facing this in personal life, which made me really a little more cognizant of it than I had been. So,
Well, you've been working hard, haven't
you know, someday I'll get a
you?
job
I'm impressed.
and
Husband,
you'll,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you'll have to pick up the slack.
Poor husband,
How about me, picked up slack?
poor husband didn't get to eat, but you're doing great for the Lord.
I've already seen that for blood.
No, actually, he's getting a lot of home cooked meals and I've been baking way too much.
Blood says I'm senile anyway, so I can't do that.
So yes, that's all I have
Doubt
for
in my
today.
mind.
You're done?
And Amanda says, thank you so much for knowing that the county board is really involved and concerned.
All right. Last week, we met the sheriff, well, we had a meeting, and Russ and myself was at the meeting with the new jail project. Michael, the architect, was there, sheriff, chief deputy, city administrator, Paris police chief, Corps was here, there was a representative from Coles County, planning or with the project. And anyway, and also the guy out in Kansas, can't think of his name, the other guy involved, Sean Harding, he was on a Zoom call with us. But anyway, we discussed, we had updated drawing. They made a slight change, and I think Sean, or Josh is maybe trying to get it printed off for us, we can take a look at it. But anyway, we went over that, got input from the city. This week, Sean, Michael, the city administrator, and the police chief are gonna have a meeting and talk about the portion of the whole project involving this police station to see, you know, what they want. And I mean, there's a preliminary drawing of the section for the police department, but they were gonna take a look at it and, you know, see what they, if any changes they wanted, you know, additions, whatever. So they were gonna get together. The sheriff made some suggestions on a few different things in the sheriff's department portion of the project. He noted all those, some improvements. Okay, that's the building, and that's a overlay of the whole,
Give them a year or two.
Oh, interesting.
Say, Roger, if you want, you're more than welcome to take a sit up there at that desk and look at.
Sit by me.
Be careful, Roger.
Got the big chair.
Get the big
See
chair.
you, Josie.
Don't let it go to your head.
But I think a couple weeks ago, they showed us a drawing of it. And in that particular drawing, they had between the Vance building, I think everybody can figure out where the Vance building is, and then this is the new building, but they had a section in there that included, I think, jail visitation booth, a county board meeting,
Public
you know,
space.
Public space.
There's a
public
Public
space.
space in there, yeah.
And they've eliminated that, and they felt like they could move that into the Vance building.
That's good.
I like this much better.
I do, I actually like this.
And,
What offices are they planning on moving from the courthouse to the vet school? You have any idea?
well, preliminary, we're thinking, actually out of the courthouse would just be the county clerk's office.
Okay.
And then also from the annex, the IT person's office, the treasurer's office,
Okay.
and supervisor assessor's office.
All right, okay,
And I think the plan is to move ESDA from where it is into the Vance building.
makes sense.
Yeah. And Michael, when he was here last week, he had brought an assistant with him, and they went over the whole Vance building and measured all the rooms and everything to get an idea, how much the different rooms, how much space there's gonna be. And did they get with you last week when they were in town to ask you what your needs were? Okay. Well, they were gonna try to, but at some point, they're gonna meet with Augie to see how much room is he gonna need. And same thing with the treasurer, as the supervisor assessor, to see how they can fit all this into the Vance building, is what the plan is. And, but like I say, they're gonna talk with the police chief this week. And when we went over this plan, the sheriff's department, they made some suggestions on maybe, like we talked about the kitchen, because the kitchen is a pretty big area on this current plan, but when they drew this up, they were planning on it being a full-fledged kitchen with a cook in there. And at this point, we don't foresee that we need that big of a kitchen, and our plan is not to have a cook, full-time cook. So they're gonna downsize that to what he calls a working kitchen.
Galley kitchen or something like.
Well,
Caterer's kitchen.
we were talking about caterers, but I think he considered it a working kitchen.
Okay.
Be like at the motel, the kitchens they have, like out here at the motel.
Yeah, but he's talking about putting like a convection oven or a couple convection ovens,
Right,
freezer.
currently, the food is being brought in, but, we might not always have it that way. But, we've talked about, having a convection oven, getting TV dinners and having them heat them up themselves. So we don't need all that room, and we've got to kind of downsize because of costs
Right.
from what the initial costs of all this is. So where we can, we're trying to downsize it a little bit. And in the cell block areas, when we had the meeting 2 weeks ago with the sheriff's department administrators, they suggested that 2 of these cell blocks, make them into dormitory type cell areas for the less
Dangerous.
dangerous, violent type offenders. We still have, 4 cell areas for the
More
Criminals,
dangerous.
yeah.
the criminals.
And this they felt like would work better, and the cost would be decreased for the total cost by using a dorm type cell versus the cell, individual cells and everything. So they suggested that, it won't really change the size of that area, but it actually will increase the number of inmates that we can house by doing that. Because like this, I think the two cells that we're talking about, I think it holds either 10 maybe each one. And by going to the dorm, I forget now how many it would overall it would be like a 10, we could house 10 more individuals than, going with the regular cells. So it would almost increase it to 60 cells, just off the top of my head. But, there's different suggestions made on this. They're gonna go back and redo some figuring and drawing and come up with, in the next 30 days, another preliminary drawing for everybody to look at, once they talk to the police chief, get their ideas, and then some of these things that were suggested on downsizing some certain areas to open up some other areas for different things. So,
They plan on using the upstairs advanced, or Vance also.
When you're
Or
saying
just-
upstairs,
or just
you mean just-
downstairs.
There's 3 stories,
Yeah, right.
and then there's an attic area
You got it.
too, so actually almost 4 levels. To they're gonna
Use it.
utilize all of it.
Okay.
And, cause in the preliminary, the drawing we had a few weeks ago with, when they had all this as being building, they had the elevator on the west side of the Vance building, but now they're gonna move it around. If you can see
Right in the front.
this on the south side,
Yeah, okay.
that'll be incorporated, security area and, stairs and, elevator, yeah.
Thought that's what he meant.
Okay.
I have some questions.
Okay,
So, the vestibule and where the elevator would be, is that part of the current building?
No, there's nothing there.
There's nothing there, right? It's just
Nothing
flat
added.
face right now,
Yeah.
so that would be a 3-story addition.
Yeah.
Okay,
They used to
but,
have fire escape on that side, I think.
Okay.
and that would have to be removed,
Yeah.
obviously.
yeah, all right. And then, explain to me the traffic flow, how, if you have somebody over on the far west side in their room, and they're gonna go have a video visit with family member. So how does that flow here?
Well, they actually won't, my understanding, they won't actually go there. The person that's coming to visit, well, there was, originally they had 4 visitation booths, but the sheriff says that 95% of the people, they don't come and visit like they used to. It's all over their smartphones, and they got something in the cell blocks, and the inmates stay in their cell
Okay.
block, and someone's sitting at home, they have their video conference.
Gotcha.
You
It's a
understand.
kiosk, basically what they
Kiosk,
have,
yeah.
yeah. They have a
Okay.
kiosk and they sit there so that when the call, there's somebody that monitors that. So like if they're showing too much, then they can cut it off. If other things are going on, they can shut that off at any time. So there's somebody monitoring that, so that can be cut off. And they just actually stay in their dorm or in their room. So like the dorm area you was talking about, that would be out into the dorm. And they sit there and they can't have other inmates behind them. There's a list of stuff that.
Okay.
Do they do that DOC?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So you don't need that anymore.
Right.
But they're gonna put that in just in case someone, maybe
That's
if I don't have a
something they say we
smartphone, can't do it,
that.
then I can come in
Okay.
and do it, a grandma or something, but
All right.
95% of the time,
Grandma,
it's,
grandma.
no one comes to the jail to visit
All right,
anymore.
Maybe
so,
reducing it to 2 instead
Right.
of 4.
Yeah,
if an attorney comes in, they are going to meet with them where? Attorney visit here, I see it here.
yeah,
Okay, so there's a man port, and they would come through the police department lobby to talk to their attorney.
yeah. We're looking after, when I first saw this, I thought the police department needs to be moved somewhere else. It's kinda in the middle of it, and it needs to be flip-flopped.
Yeah,
And when we had the meeting the other day, I think everybody
Everybody
agreed,
agreed.
and they're gonna try to move it somewhere else and move the sheriff's department over here and
seems more
And
The
logical.
sheriff's department closer and the
Right.
police
Yeah,
department on the other side.
so, and currently with this drawing, they've got like one entrance for the police department and then over here, one for the sheriff's department, and we talked about after they flip-flop, just have one entrance and you come in, if you have to go to the police department, you go here, if the sheriff's department, you go there.
gotcha.
So they're gonna try to incorporate that.
Okay, and honest, because I don't know about Sally ports, there's a new term to me. So is this like an enclosed building with
Yeah.
garage doors?
Yes.
Okay,
And I think it's room enough for at least 2 squad cars to be able to pull in there, and then they take
Well,
them
then
from
you
there.
shut the doors and they can't get away.
Yeah, and then they take them out and bring them in through the entrance into the booking area.
and then you've got this, so they would come into the booking desk, no?
Good luck reading that.
What's-
it's
what's
hard,
the
this is so small, I can't read half
Oh,
of it,
okay. I just,
yeah.
flow is something that really interests me.
But, if you look at this, the site plan, they're gonna have the entrance, first obviously off of Blackburn, you know, there'll be a couple entrances there to the parking lots, you know, there's gonna be parking lots for some employees for like the courthouse portion, and then the public across the front here along Blackburn. And in behind the jail is they're gonna have parking lots for employees of the police department, sheriff's department. And they're not gonna have, as of right now, an entrance off of Main Street. Cause I guess first it drops off quite a
Yeah.
bit, and getting the state of Illinois to get entrances is an issue. So they're gonna have an entrance off of Central Street.
Do we have one now, or you?
No,
we're
there's
gonna-
no, currently there is none.
Okay, very good.
It's
So-
just an alley there, but no entrance to.
Yeah. So they're gonna have the entrance there so that, you know, for allowing employees to park back there, and then like when you go into the Sally Port, you come off of Central into that, you know, into the area and go to the Sally Port, and then you can come out of the Sally Port, just circle back around and go back out the exit on the Central.
Okay. And is there a security fence on the new building? Does there have to be?
I've never heard him talk about that. I don't know. I've never heard it.
That was gonna be kind of a question. Are they gonna have a yard?
I was gonna ask that too.
Because, you know, if you have, like, especially if you have dorms and all that, they get very frustrated. That's why a lot of times your jails are messed up, because they're so frustrated.
Right here is the exercise area.
Right. I seen that.
It's not an outside, I think they're gonna have daylight, you know, skylights and stuff, but I don't, as of right now, there's no outside exercise area.
And you know, to the
This is the
community.
exercise area, right?
Because really, the only thing you have, and I'm sorry if I'm misspeaking,
No,
but the
no,
only thing you
you're
have
fine.
right now is your commissary that you can do discipline. But when you have a gym,
Right.
there's something to take away. Or you
Right.
have a yard, there's something you can take away. So
Right.
if you have those things you can take away, now you have a little bit more discipline.
Right.
But otherwise, you don't have anything, and all they're gonna do is trash your building, that's all they're gonna do. It's just a,
Put it
Don't
down
worry.
for that.
Well, and I guess I was thinking too, public view and public perception, it's really not attractive to see guys in orange suits outside. But was it something that was needed, and would it be this whole area? It also, though, could make people feel more secure
mhm,
if there's a fence.
right. Yeah, I would
So-
think you'd have.
Yeah,
I'm-
I've never heard that brought in conversation, but that's something we'll talk about the next time, you know, that, you know, this area back here, maybe
Somewhere.
some security. We also talked about, outside storage building. So if they need to put some squad cars in there to do something, if they need to secure a vehicle or some type of evidence to, if the state comes in to process and everything, you just, and then a place does, you know, there's evidence storage areas in the jail, but sometimes there's stuff you can't bring in the building, you know, you don't want in the building. So we talked about that, and that's something they're gonna figure in. Talked about an area to put the tower, somewhere on the backside back there. 'Cause
They're gonna take
obviously
that tower from the present jail and move it there?
I don't foresee that to happen.
But they're.
Because you're gonna have to still operate from the current jail, and how you gonna take all the radio equipment and everything that's on there, take the tower down, move it here, and put it back up, you know, you gotta, one day you're gonna move from here,
Yeah,
or the
you just
current
gotta have a
jail.
tower, but you already,
Yeah.
okay.
You know, we're gonna have to put a new tower,
Okay.
and there might be some other equipment that we're gonna have to do that we can't move from the current place to the old one,
Okay.
or new one.
Back to public perception. I hope that when this is all done, it doesn't look like a big ugly brick building from coming in from the west, coming in from the north.
North.
You know, because
Yeah,
That's-
cause
that's
when
a
you're
huge
coming from the
amount.
north, you're gonna be seeing the backside, you're not gonna see the front.
Right, and I would, it,
Right.
it would be nice if that wasn't ugly.
Plant a few trees.
Yeah, something, because, you know, we got enough trouble with how ugly Main and Central can be. We don't need to add to it.
Anybody go to Terre Haute? They're supposed to open up their new jail pretty soon, I think.
Well, we were offered a
I
tour.
thought we were gonna do that.
I don't know whether Jeff's
Well, right now, it's probably.
Probably almost too late.
had time to get that arranged. I know he had,
Probably
I think they're gonna open up pretty soon.
Probably
I think
not.
it's this summer.
So I think we can have you know, the Vance building lends itself to be attractive to the east. But
It's not mow the
I
grass.
just think we have a responsibility to make this
Well, he talked
semi-attractive.
about
We talked about the south side.
the south side, you know, having it all blend together, but coming from the north, you know, you're not gonna see the south side. You're-
Right,
Come from the north, you're gonna have all those old buildings that block it out anyway. The ones, buildings already there, like the Coke building and.
well,
Not see the
right,
backside.
but you're gonna see something attractive that's ours first when you're coming from the south driving
Right,
north.
right.
But it's the other side, I just,
If you're going north to south, you're not gonna see much of the back. There's too many old buildings. Yeah,
Right
it's
now.
gonna hide. Yeah, right now, yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at now. They're working on it, and hopefully within 30 days they'll get back with us and see what they come up with and go from there.
you know, the first thing I don't wanna see when I see our facility coming from the north is junk
Sorry.
cars in an evidence lot,
I don't think we'll,
just saying.
okay.
They were talking about how many new jailers and so forth it's gonna take to,
Yeah, we talked about, you know, there's currently 8 full-time people, and we're gonna have to have a 9th, and the jail administrator says he thinks that's adequate. The state of Illinois, when we originally talked about this, they said 9 would work.
okay,
So that would
that's
be,
not bad then. I thought it'd be worse than that.
well, we'll see when it's all said and done,
Yeah.
but, you know, they're gonna utilize some part-time help.
Okay.
They've got, I think, 2 part-time guys now, and they might have to get another one too. But they feel like it'll work with 90
Okay.
full-time and some 2 or 3 part-time people.
Well, who does the, cleaning at the jail? Do you have somebody come in that's hard? Because you have to have somebody there, won't you? Clean the jail
I
like,
don't know, they're doing a pretty decent job now.
Do one.
Looks pretty good
Yeah.
now.
I think I assume they use some inmates. I mean,
okay,
in the past, we always used trustees, but
I just wondered.
I'm not sure how much they use trustees, but, and then the employee, you know, the jailers, between everything, it's pretty clean, it
It's
really
good.
is. It looks good. Better, a lot better than it was.
So between Vance and, of course, maybe this is just too early if we're gonna be flip-flopping departments, but, so where would there just be like a covered walkway or something from
Oh.
Vance to the new building?
We talked about that we felt like there needed to be a walkway between the Vance building and the jail for, you know, if employees or, you know, because from time to time, well, just, there's gonna be, we talked, they're gonna add a walkway, a connection between the two.
And I would think safety, for employees in the Vance school building, that would be a little better too. It's not like you can just run from one building to the other if you escape.
I mean, obviously, they lock doors and everything.
Yeah. So there's really not much interaction between these two buildings. except for communication between the dispatchers and the sheriff and the city.
Well, on the one that they gave us a couple of weeks ago, they showed that 911 was gonna be in the basement of the Vance
Yeah.
building, but when we had our meeting 2 weeks ago, we made the suggestion, we didn't think that was a good idea, that it needs to be a part of, in this, the new complex. And when we left the meeting the other day, I said, you know, obviously if the police department comes, at that point, we're gonna have combined dispatch. And we felt like that it needed to be somewhere added in this new complex, not be over here in this other building. And I know he mentioned something about what he was talking about, you know, if you'd have a disaster or something, you know, that it'd be maybe a little safer in the new building versus being in the Vance building. You know, he said, you know, he mentioned that we're in that fault area for earthquakes and stuff, you know, so you never know when that could happen. And this would be a little better protection, I guess, in this new building versus.
Well, the basement would be-
Gotta protect the prisoners and ignore the other people. The good people.
So hopefully, he's gonna try to incorporate
So that your storm
the
shelter.
dispatch into the new facility.
That's
So
a
would the
pretty solid
basement-
building.
Would the basement then become a storm shelter, like a community storm
Could be, I
shelter?
would think,
Could.
possibility. Yep.
It's a pretty solid building, except it's 3 stories.
That's a good idea.
And that's another thing I asked him. I said, you know, what's the life expectancy of this 100-year-old Vance building? He never did really give me an answer. They just never gave me an answer. He said, it's a good solid building. And I said, well, you know, versus what's the life expectancy of this new building? And Sean, the guy that designs the buildings, you know, he said we design them, or they're a 50-year life expectancy, is what he said. I thought it would be a little more, but
I would too.
that's just, he mentioned, you know, they plan on a 50-year life expectancy. I said, well, it's probably gonna take us 50 years to pay for it.
Can't you build one a little more like the last one?
Yeah, I said, you know,
5-year turbine.
you're never gonna have anything as good as what we've got now. You know, it's over 100 years old. He said, amen to that. He said, you know, that, I'd love to have it, be able to utilize that old building. And he said, those were built to last.
Any ideas what you're gonna do if the old jail wants to move everything out to the new one? Not gonna tear it down, are you? I don't think you can touch it.
What do you mean you don't think you can touch it?
A lot of people complain about if you tear it down.
Well, you want it?
I don't want it.
Okay.
You know what?
I want,
You know what
I want
mean,
those
though,
blocks, is what I
You know
want.
what I mean?
Well,
It'll probably be gone, but, you know, that's,
May have a lot of people
We'll
stand
see.
around, so we can't tear it down.
well, you wanna make it into
You
a
sure you can?
tourist play or a
Another
motel?
jail bed and breakfast, just like
Bed and
Rockville.
breakfast,
Well,
yeah.
some of the parents can show their kids where they spend a lot of time.
Yeah.
So, any more questions on this?
Thank you. Thank
We'll
you
keep
for
you
all you-
updated, and whenever they get back with us, we'll bring drawings and see, go from there.
It's a comfortable chair.
I don't feel that. Come over here.
yeah.
If no one else has anything else, we need a motion to adjourn. Second, and all those in favor, aye.
Uh,
Opposed, say no. Okay, we're adjourned.